In December 1945, two farmers near Luxor in Egypt were digging for fertilizer outside their village of Nag Hammadi.
Muhammad Ali of the Al-Saman clan, with some of his relatives, were looking for a natural kind of fertilizer called sabach at the foot of a cliff called the Jabal al-Tarif. And they hit something that was kind of hard.
They had found an ancient ceramic urn, and it was still sealed. At first, they were frightened that breaking it open might release evil spirits.
He heard stories about a jinn, or spirits, that might be released from the jar and could haunt you the rest of your life.
But seduced by the lure of treasure, Muhammad smashed open the jar. Inside, he found 13 leather-bound papyrus books. Here were no fewer than 52 early Christian texts, or codices, written in Coptic, the language of Egyptian Christians.
Inside the codices, which were found at Nag Hammadi, were a variety of different early Christian texts. The Gospel of Thomas, the secret book of Revelation of John, a wide range of literature that is giving to us alternative voices of what early Christianity was like.
By the 5th century, the Roman Catholic Church had defined the New Testament. Most of the rest of Christian literature was deemed heretical and ordered destroyed. Thanks to an Egyptian farmer, books that the early church fathers had banned were back in circulation.
The reason that the Nag Hammadi codices are so important is that they reveal an alternative strand of Christianity, a striving for wisdom and a living out your life according to that enlightenment.
This approach to Christianity is called Gnostic, meaning about wisdom. And in this newly discovered 4th century collection was a biblical bombshell.
Among the documents were the Gospel of Thomas, which is a collection of sayings of Jesus, 114 of them.
Some of these sayings appear in the New Testament Gospels.
For many of the first will be last.
But many more are new, even strange.
Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lucky is the lion that the human will eat, so that the lion becomes human.
The Gospel of Thomas provides us with concrete evidence that early Christians did produce collections of the sayings of Jesus that included no reference to death and resurrection or to his birth or to miracle stories.
Archaeologists have found small fragments of Thomas's Gospel dating back to the early 3rd century. And it could be even older.
While the copy that was found in Egypt of Thomas dates to the 4th century, it may be that the Gospel of Thomas was originally written in the 2nd century, or some have suggested even earlier in the late 1st century.
If Thomas is that old, some of it might be actual words spoken by Jesus. And one particular line of the Gospel stands out. Verse 61 speaks of Jesus dining alone with a woman called Salome.
In the Gospel of Thomas, Salome looks up and sees Jesus and says to him, "Hey, mister, who do you think you are?"
Salome said, "Who are you, mister? You have climbed onto my couch and eaten from my table."
And then Jesus responds, and Salome says, "I am your disciple." It is remarkable because they are reclining on couches together. It is also remarkable because Salome is a disciple of Jesus, a part of that kind of inner circle.
Being alone with an unmarried woman would have been scandalous.
I think for Jesus to have relationships with women in terms of teacher-student would have been highly unusual, not only within Judaism, but in the whole broader Mediterranean world. It was not typical for men to be instructing women in such an intimate way.
The Gospel of Thomas confirmed what many had suspected from reading the New Testament, that Jesus' interactions with women were radical.
To have a mixed group of men and women following an itinerant preacher, I wouldn't say that it's completely unique, but in a village situation like that, it's very unusual, I think.
Jesus' band of travelers would have raised eyebrows around rural Galilee. But when they looked for refuge at night, raised eyebrows may have turned into open outrage.
Maybe it's revealed that this woman traveling with him is not his wife, so there's a bit of a scandal. And now you have the challenge of whether or not you would welcome such a dishonorable woman traveling unattached with a man.
But the presence of women would have helped Jesus' group gain trust.
May have been part of the strategy of Jesus. If a group that was only men came into a village or town, the villagers, the townspeople might be very suspicious. But if there are women with those men, then it no longer looks like a threatening group.
Traveling as a mixed group also reflected Jesus' desire to change the social order.
The Jesus movement becomes a movement not just of one person with a bunch of men. Then it becomes a kind of a new family of people that are creating a new kind of order of life together. This is a new order of family that goes beyond the biological family.
The Gospel of Thomas drives the point home that if they obeyed God, Jesus' followers would become his family.
He said to them, "Those here who do what my Father wants are my brothers and my mother."
But this wasn't the only surprise in the books of Nag Hammadi. There was new evidence here about Jesus' relationship with Mary Magdalene.
The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene. He loved her more than all the disciples.
The Gospel of Philip claimed that Mary Magdalene had a special, even intimate relationship with Jesus. But the words that followed were even more surprising.
It is suggested that Jesus loved Mary more than the other disciples. And he used to kiss her often on her, and then, unfortunately, there's a hole in the text.
And used to kiss her on her.
And of course, it's in that hole that various people have filled in all kinds of imaginable options.
Linguists agree on the word most likely to fit.
The word mouth fits in there very nicely, and that's usually how it's restored. That Jesus used to kiss Mary Magdalene often on the mouth.
This suggestion sent shockwaves through Christianity.
For a man to kiss a woman who's not his wife or mother or something like that, in traditional Judaism is actually forbidden.
The idea that Jesus and Mary were married is at the center of the plot of one of the most popular books about Jesus after the Bible, the Da Vinci Code. But it is not clear that the Gospel of Philip actually meant this kiss to be romantic.
You have to keep in mind that in the Mediterranean world and in the Middle East, that a kiss between two people shows camaraderie and friendship and appreciation. And we don't have to read something sexually into this.
When Judas kissed Jesus on the night of his arrest, the Gospel writers treat it as a regular greeting. Kissing may even have been incorporated into early church ritual.
Greet one another with a holy kiss. All the churches of Christ greet you.
And a careful reading of Philip's Gospel shows the kiss might be only symbolic.
In this text, in the Gospel of Philip, it talks about kissing as a kind of intimate way of communicating teaching, of communicating and understanding the teaching of Jesus. So it may have meant a very deep, spiritual, perhaps even mystical understanding of Jesus' teachings.
Most scholars don't believe the Gospel of Philip is older than the 3rd century, or that it is even historically accurate. It is evidence, however, that a tradition of intimacy between Jesus and Mary survived for centuries after they died. But the deserts of Egypt held another secret about Mary, a gospel that the Catholic Church feared even more than the kiss, one that showed Mary as the leader of early Christianity.